What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to Nightmare Success In and Out Podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares to set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with. We're going to be talking about life before prison, life in prison, and life out of prison. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that will help you knock down some of the prisons you've built up in your own mind. Folks, today I have a Texan with me, and we haven't had a Texan on the podcast, but Ron Slovacek, welcome. So happy to have you on Nightmare Success In and Out.
Brent, it's a pleasure to be here.
I got to tell you, Ron, when I was coming into Leavenworth, you remember things so vividly, and I was looking around. Who in the world looks like they're getting this life right in here? This unfamiliar world, and I always admired you from just the very first time I saw you, and kind of saw how you walked and worked around the Leavenworth life, and you just kind of kept and being yourself and kept keeping yourself busy and keeping yourself involved, but you were figuring it out how to live that life. And I thought to myself as a newbie, man, I gotta figure this out, because there is a way to do this and not be in the abyss over here with the guy that's in the bunk bed that's not making it work. So Ron, and you and I were just talking before we got on here. We're two guys. We're white collar guys. At Leavenworth Prison, coming from big cases. I know. We were just talking about your case went for 6 years. And it was probably covered heavily in the news in Dallas. Man,
it had,
wow.
I think when we had like 36,000 news hits. We tried to get a change of venue because of the how much it was covered in the press for 5 years. Not because of me necessarily, but because of the other players involved. And so we did all kinds of studies about how many times you were on TV and on the radio and in print. You couldn't go a week and not read something about the case.
Well, and I think one of the things that's the most interesting to me, because when you're in this world and you get indicted and they start stacking, if you have 4 charges, they can stack them 20 times, and you end up looking at 900 years or whatever it is. You actually are one of the very few people I know, because 97% of the people indicted plea, and you went to trial. And that takes, I don't know what that's called, but I know the first word I can think of is grit. And I mean, you did that.
Yeah. And of those 3%, that go to the trial, I don't know the 80%. So
Ron, somehow
they end up in the same spot. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it froze there for a minute.
Yeah, it did. It kind of froze.
I can edit it, but whatever you said, can you say it again, Ron? Because
Yes.
I missed it.
Okay, yeah, I said, so of the 90%, 97% of people plead, of the 3% that go to trial, of those 3%, I think the feds have a 80 or 90 or 95% conviction rate. So
yeah,
of all the people that ever enter the federal system, maybe 1 or 2% are found not guilty, or don't.
Yeah.
Not that they're guilty, but they're found not guilty or whatever. And I was kind of aware of those odds. So, but I don't know. It's a long convoluted. There's no simple answer, but even to this day, knowing everything that happened, I'd probably still go to trial.
Well, I mean, to let the listeners know, you were a developer, home builder, and the case was, I mean, it involved so many things with politicians and all these different people that were in this thing, bribes and all these different things that the politicians were involved in. And I think from what you and I were talking about, those people also were serving time as it all went through. It's a lot to live through, isn't it?
Oh, it's an incredible lot to live through. I think the politicians that were involved, some of them actually have passed away in prison.
Wow.
Yep. The mayor pro tem, a guy named Don Hill, who was a person that I was familiar with, liked, supported. I thought he was, the way I knew him, an asset to Dallas. But here he was being charged with accepting bribes, taking bribes from some of these really high-end developers, multifamily developers, and other politicians. I think there's might still be some still in prison serving time who got really lengthy sentences.
Yeah.
I was kind of a peripheral person down on the very bottom, happened to know these people, and just got involved in something unknowingly, and was charged with something that I did not do. But to prove you didn't do something is really hard.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's what I learned about our system, you know. And so it was a big case, big case in Dallas, the largest, they had said at the time, public corruption case in the city of Dallas. And I was just one of the little guys at the bottom, but.
Well, you ended up getting 7 years, which, you know, I got a 5-year sentence, served 3. And, you know, 7 years is a big chunk of time. I going back a little bit, Ron. So did you grow up around the Dallas area as a kid?
I was born and raised 30 miles south of Dallas in a town called Ennis, Texas. Lots of family members still live there. And I left there, went to college, went to East Texas to SFA my first year out of high school. Ended up moving back to Dallas, and then moved up to Denton and went to the University of North Texas and graduated there in '91 with a degree in political science and anthropology, going to law school. And I had a family with a child and a wife, and had been going to school full time and working full time. And I decided after I graduated, before I went to law school, I took my LSATs. I think I got accepted to 1 or 2 schools. And I told my dad, I'm going to take a year off and enjoy life. And he warned me, he said, don't do it. You'll never go back. I said, no, Dad, I will. Yeah. And he was right. I never went back. I got into construction. That I love to work with my hands. I love to build things. And I was very good at it. And within a year or two, going from a starving student trying to raise a family to making 6 figures in a year or two, doing something you love, who wouldn't pass that up? Right. And that kind of was it. So I've been in the Dallas area really all of my life, except for my 7 years up in Kansas. But so
Ron, you had early success. It's so weird that we've got 2 political science people on this podcast.
Were you a political science person?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I was going to be a big trial attorney, and then I got sideways into selling pre-need funerals. So I don't know. I don't know the story how you get there, but I love politics, love political science, love the whole deal. But I don't think they usually let 2 political science people on a podcast. But political science people can talk. That's for sure.
Hey, don't get me started.
So Ron, you got early success.
Yeah.
And you've got a family. And I think, if I remember, did you have 2 or 3 kids?
3.
3
2
kids.
boys and a girl. Yeah.
2 boys and a girl. I got 3 kids. I got 3 girls. I didn't figure out the boy thing, but so walk me through how you're growing in the Dallas region as a developer builder, and life is good, right? Making money, doing what you like doing. Lead me into how in the world did this all happen to Ron Slovacek?
I'll tell you what, Brent, it is it's a multifaceted story, and I know we don't have. I could talk about it for a week, but I'm going to give you the abbreviated version.
Okay.
I was definitely very successful early on, but I worked at it. I started by swinging a hammer.
Yep.
Started a framing business, ended up having builders waiting, pouring slabs and waiting for me to get there because I was such a good business person to them, not just a carpenter, but I did what I said I was going to do. And
you were into services. You were into service and relationships.
Service relationships. No matter what the piece of paper said, my word, my bond, and I did it for them. And I tried to make it good. And so I had some of my builders said, you know what, you should try building yourself. So I thought, well, that's a good idea. So I'm in my 20s, and I thought, well, I'm going to buy some lots and build some houses. So I went and bought lots for cash. I just had a lot of cash and started building houses. And ended up my first house I built was overbuilt a neighborhood. Ended up being a incredible, expensive learning experience, but I learned a lot from that.
What they say about success, though, there's failures along the way. You just got to learn from them.
You know, for sure. I'll tell you what, every time you fail, if you learn from it, if you go back, not to criticize yourself, but to say, what should I have done? What did I miss?
Right.
What can I do better? And you can
makes you wiser.
Use that, and it'll springboard you to the next level because you gain knowledge. And I had a lot of good teachers along the way too, older developers and builders that kind of mentored me. But that's kind of got me into that. But anyway, you asked me how I got.
Well, no, Ron, go back to that because I think that's a big tip for listeners. They're just talking about building a business. Did you seek those guys out that more mentors that you saw them getting it right and you thought maybe I need to talk to them?
You know what? I didn't seek them out. It's almost like they sought me.
Okay.
A lot of them were, a couple of the guys were previous developers who were kind of semi-retired, who were looking for a young gun to come in there and learn from them and help them put their own money at work again and be involved on the peripheral, but not doing the day-to-day stuff. And these were good guys. I tell you what, one of my first early, actually, he was my first early partner, helped me put together about a 20-acre land purchase back in about, I don't know, 2000. No, like 94 or 95. Name was Kirby Albright. He was in his 70s when I met him. He passed away a few years ago while I was in prison, but he taught me a lot of things. He was a good developer. He developed a lot of stuff outside of rock wall, but I think I didn't seek them, but they saw the potential in me and said, hey, this guy looks like he wants to learn. But that's kind of always how I've been, even when I started framing. When I started working for someone I had to learn, I went to them. I want to learn. Give me the plans. Let me teach me how to read them. You know, you got to look for that. So I think I come across some people that I hire to do work. They don't have this desire to learn. They think it's going to naturally come just because I'm there. But you actually have to reach out and grab it. You have to reach out and ask for it. You got to do it, and you got to find good people. So mentors, you're right, very critical because you can learn from them. And even today, I'm trying to mentor my children. That's my son. I've got a son who wants to come up in the business. I've got a nephew that wants to kind of stay in the business. So I try to do that, and I think that is, if there's one thing that someone can learn, especially if they face the challenge of coming out of prison and having to start life again.
Living life in reverse, basically. Is still use some of those mentors you used in the past. Because normally a good mentor, you're going to get to know, they're going to learn, trust you, and you're going to trust them. And they're going to see who you are regardless. Make mistakes, you don't make mistakes, and they're going to want to pick it back up and dig you. Totally agree. I think that's good
so anyway,
information.
That was kind of I was heading down the direction of even how this happened, but we got sidetracked.
No, but that's good information. And so I guess the good question then here is then when did you know things were going sideways?
Well, I was really, my business was doing very well. I had, in the real estate business, we what I was doing was finding properties. I would bring in groups of investors. We had purchased the property. I would own, we'd actually create a limited partnership or some other type of ownership vehicle. I would manage the property, be the general partner, the general manager, and I had multiple deals going, very large projects going around Texas. And even though I was very economically successful, big house, nice cars, nice family, great vacations, private schools, all those things,
Mm-hmm.
I felt a little incomplete, or like I wasn't giving back. I'm in about my mid 30s, and something's kind of bothered me in the back of my head, because I look around at my friends, they all look like me. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I don't
Yeah.
have a very diverse.
Well, I mean, Ron, nobody's got hair like you, though. I mean, I'm looking at Ron on the Zoom. Ron's got I'll put a picture up of him when I put this out on social media. But he's got the Brad Pitt flow. You know, that's what every guy wants, the Brad Pitt flow. So he's got that. So no, not everybody looks like Ron.
Good genes. All it is good genes.
I'm sorry, Ron.
Anyway,
I interrupt your story.
Yeah. So anyway, I was looking around. I'm thinking, in my parents had always been very giving people. My father was a deacon in the Catholic Church,
Okay.
and very community focused person, always giving out. I have 5 brothers and 2 sisters. He raised typical Catholic family, large family. We were very involved in our community. I saw my father spending his nights and weekends studying to get his doctorate in theology, but then also studying to become a deacon. And then he took that and he helped start a church in a small town outside of my hometown. Very involved outreach in people's lives for years. And
were you, Ron, involved like that?
Yeah, I was. He had us involved when I was a youngster. When I was under his tutelage back when I was living at home. But as a young adult, I was more concerned about raising a family, making money, earning a living, and doing all that. So I wasn't very involved. So I decided it's time for me to get involved. It's time to take my talents, how to put together people, how to put together differing interests from a building perspective, a housing perspective, and see if I can help communities. And what better community to focus on than Dallas? Even though I've never lived in Dallas, never been a resident of Dallas, my family has. So I thought, well, I'm going to focus on Dallas. I met some of the people involved in this case early on. One was a young African American lady who wanted to be a developer as well. Speaking of mentoring, so I decided I'm going to help mentor her and bring it up through and kind of help her out. Well, she ended up being one of the people in the cases. She ended up pleading out and actually getting no jail time, and good for her. She had a young family. But anyway, this is kind of how I got involved. I needed to get involved in the minority community.
So it's low income housing, right?
Low income housing. Reach out there to try to put some, not even low income housing, but just trying to help the blighted neighborhoods, bringing real commercial development, trying to use my contacts, my investor money, my bank contacts, all of these things, and try to bring them community, bring it up. Well, there's a saying, no good deed goes unpunished. And unfortunately, some of the people I was involved in had other ideas in mind, and they used my own talents. I lost a lot of money in these things. I mean, I was duped by some of them. Probably should have seen it earlier than I did, but I'm a very trusting individual. I think one thing I've learned as a business person is since then is trust people, give them the benefit of the doubt, but verify.
Yeah,
that's probably something I didn't practice back then. But that's kind of how it got me into it. I got involved trying to be a help in Dallas, and there was no financial incentive for me to do it. I had
You thought you were giving back as your dad had been working and
Yeah.
you felt like you had done well and you wanted to give back into the community because you knew how to build and you wanted to create the relationships to do that. Gotcha.
Yeah, and I wanted to do it more than just with writing a check. I wanted to
Be involved.
be involved, to mentor, to do something that would make my father even proud. And
Yeah.
my father was at this time in my life was battling cancer, heart disease, all of these things. He ended up passing away at 63 before I went to trial. He was a resource for me that I miss dearly. So all during this time, and I think that's part of it.
Well, a lot of it sounds like it was your motivation, Ron, to be showing his eyes. I'm not just a successful guy that can develop and build these, nice developments over here in the neighborhood. I'm going to give back and give to people in the community and mentor into that. I get that.
Yep. Yeah. And that's kind of it. And then it kind of went from there. And, the people that were involved in this, I knew for a few months, and it cost me not just the 7 years I served in prison,
right,
but the 5 years. Because when they busted the door down, if you go back and look at the Dallas Morning News and all they're plastering my picture, they're saying bad things about me. I had the prosecutors and compared me to a leader of a drug cartel.
Right.
I was just blown away. And just a few months prior to that, I served on in my hometown boards, development boards here. I had state representatives soliciting me to serve on state boards in some capacity. So I went from this citizen to this in a matter of a few months.
And what you find out, Ron, in that is that heavy narrative that comes from an all full court press from the media, and then you weigh the elephant on top of that with the government, you can't press against that narrative. You're suffocated at the bottom of that.
You know what, Brent? Those are I would not have before 2005. You could have said that to me, and I'd have said no. The government, prosecutors, these guys are interested in the truth. They're interested in fairness. They want it to come about, and if people did wrong, then they want them to be punished. But we're going to find the truth. I did not find that to be the case.
Right. And I think there's one thing that I think that's really broken in the system, and I don't know how it'll ever get tweaked, but there is a problem that exists with convictions get promotions. And the missing link in that is understanding what is actually the case. And was there wrong done? Were there people that were innocent or guilty? But those cases they're not massaged that way. It's about convictions, and you put them up and you tack them on a wall so that you can get a judgeship or you get the promotion within the office or whatever the case is. I'm not sure how that gets fixed, but it is part of the system that's broken.
I agree with you. It's kind of like you're incentivizing not justice, you're incentivizing convictions. Convictions isn't justice. It's not the same. I ran when I started in construction, and then I had multiple subdivisions. I had VPs of construction, VPs of sales and marketing. I had a big staff, lots of salespeople, lots of sales managers. And I used to sit down for a while. I did my own sales management and sales training for my salespeople, sitting in our model homes around the Metroplex. And this is another piece of advice. I'll go back to mentoring. I learned from one of my clients long ago, and I'll tell you in a second. But anyway, I used to sit down with my salespeople and try to create and work with them what kind of incentive there was for them. So in real estate, I don't, as a builder, the first house you sell, if I want you to sell 3 houses in a month, the first house you sell is okay. The second one's better. The third one is really what I'm looking for. The fourth one is gravy. So I'm going to pay you more for the fourth one and pay myself less to get there. And I
Right.
think that's a good motivation. So I don't know if it's an economic motivation to be brought back into the Justice Department for this, but they're definitely, if your goal is justice, then it shouldn't be convictions. That's not the
Right.
same thing.
Yeah.
But the point I was going to make is regarding incentives, I had another mentor, client of mine, who is I'm not going to mention his name, but he owns a sports team. I built a house from a long time ago. And he told me, he said, Ron, he said, you know what my favorite day of the week is? He said, it's the day I pay out bonuses. He said, and the bigger they are, the better. Because that means those guys are working hard. I'm paying them more, means my business is doing better. So I'm not afraid of doing that. You pay people for success. No,
Right.
I've never had an issue with that.
No,
Anyway.
that builds success, and it also builds people. When people are making money in your business, it gives you rock stars to promote. That, hey, if you do what Ron's doing, look at Ron, and you can see yourself layer and step up to that. You need that, and you need to pay people to be able to do that, so that they advertise for you to show that the success can happen. So, Ron, I want to go to the part where you go in and you decide that you're going to go to trial, and I know all the preparation has to go into these trials, but I want to fast forward to when everything got said and done, and you knew that the jury was, because I never had this experience, and you're sitting there looking at the jury. Did you have a feel for how things were going and what they were going to come back with?
I'll tell you what, I think it's interesting. You could go back and read the transcript of my trials. You can see the news coverage, all of that. I was carved out and had my own trial from the rest of these people. Because I had a very strong case, and because I was just going to stand on the truth and let the chips fall where they may. So my trial lasted, I can't remember, 4 or 5 or 6 days. The jury was out as long as my trial.
Okay.
The general rule of thumb is for every day of trial, it's an hour of juror time.
Yep,
In
I've
5
heard that.
hours, in 5 or 6 hours, they should have decided. It took them a week or so.
Wow.
So I think there were people in there fighting for me.
What were those days like?
You know what? A lot of prayer and just a lot of asking God just for strength to deal with whatever comes. And a lot of consoling my family members and just keeping them, whatever happens is going to happen. But it was stressful. So my attorney called me and he says, the jury's got a decision. Come on down. So we did. And he took me aside and he said, this was a very, Mike Gibson was his name, my attorney. Ferguson Payton Gibson, Dallas, very well respected law firm. He said, I've never had a judge do this in my 30 or 40 or 50 years experience, whatever he said. But she told us what the verdict is so that we can share it with you before you walk into that courtroom.
Wow.
And he told me it was going to be guilty on all 3 counts. And we kind of took it in stride. So walking into the courtroom wasn't the first time I heard that. The judge, told my attorney, he told me outside the courtroom, and we walked in 10 minutes later and it came out. So it was devastating to my family because
How old were your kids at the time?
My youngest daughter was 7,
Okay.
12, and 17.
Okay. Wow. Well, I mean, in the jury trial, you get the verdict. How long did you have to wait for sentencing?
I think it was a couple of months. They do a pre-sentencing report, all of that stuff, and
did they put in your report that they were going to recommend you for RDAP?
No.
No. Okay.
Here's an interesting aside, Brent, that I just want to bring up how kind of messed up our justice system is. You know, I did 7 years in prison, and I've never been in a set of handcuffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when they did the perp walk with me, right? And I had to go to the judge, and I remember walking there with my attorneys, one on each side, walking in, and this elevator opening up, and one of the gentlemen that's in the case, a young African American, it opens up, and there's these two FBI agents who I recognize. And he's cuffed up, and they walk him out. And he's in a suit, and he's cuffed. They walk him out, and they uncuff him. And I'm thinking, well, they're about to cuff me up and take me out. And they just opened the door up and said, "Come in, Mr. Slovacek." I'm appalled at the need of our justice system to lock someone up for 7 years and never had been in handcuffs ever, even during my,
Right.
I mean, really? So anyway, I kind of,
No, I think
that's
that's
a memory there, but
no, I think that's interesting because, you know, usually when you put people away behind a fence and with the barbed wire and everything, it's so that they don't harm others.
yeah.
And so I've always thought there's other ways within the justice system. If you feel like you're going to punish somebody that hasn't harmed somebody, there's probably other ways to do that that can actually benefit both sides.
You know, I agree with you. I mean, during my pre-sentence report, my attorneys and I had an idea, you know, found guilty. Well, Ron, maybe we can ask the judge for, you know, community service or something. She heard your case. She heard all these things. So I spent a month or two contacting all of the nonprofits in the Denton area, lining up 5, 10, 15,000 hours of community service I could do for them.
Well, I mean, Ron, can you imagine what benefit you would have been to somebody in community service that could build and had the knowledge of how to develop and help the communities you were actually after to help anyway?
I know.
I mean, I'm just saying, there's a lot that could be thought about in that arena.
They took 7 years of a productive person. I could have solved the homeless problem in Denton,
yeah,
and tackled it in Dallas, you know, for nothing, costing nothing.
Right.
So anyway, so that's kind of was the judge told my attorney told me, and that was it. We walked in. But here's what's funny. So we went through a couple of months of pre-sentence report, right? Because we were going to, my attorneys were going to ask the judge for community service, 10,000 hours or 15 or something, you know,
whatever.
Something big.
Yeah.
And that was a no-go. But on the day of sentencing, this is how really messed up our system is. You know, they give you a point in your pre-sentencing. They take all of this. Well, my points were 130 or 140.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of points.
There's a lot of points.
And predominantly because of the finances involved.
Right.
My family shows up for sentencing. I had a room full. I had both sides of a courtroom, federal courtroom, packed supporters. I had letters. The judge said, she goes, normally we get a form letter in. I had hundreds of letters, all handwritten, all no form letters sent in, supporting me. I had people talking. I mean, all these things happening. Sentencing comes up. We go in. My family's in there. Well, the judge has one sentencing to happen before us, and she says we're going to take care of this matter. So the bailiffs or whoever's in there, they walk in this guy with the jumpsuit on, and he's handcuffed up, each holding him. Set him down. The judge starts going with this guy's in there for like his third time to be there for aggravated robbery or bank robbery, armed or something incredible. He's getting violent.
A violent crime.
A violent crime, and he's getting violent. Won't stand up for the judge. He's fighting, yelling. These the marshals are having to hold him and restrain him.
Yeah.
My family is witnessing all of this. His point levels were less than mine. The judge, got so bad, the judge halted all proceedings, said, Mr. Slovacek, it looks like this is all your family is here. I'm going to ask all of y'all to leave the courtroom so we can deal with this. And that's what happened.
Wow.
But I came to find out this guy, a 3-time armed robber, had a lower point level than a guy who had been a pillar in his community. It's
really blows you away. And, you know, those are the things that you look at in our, you know, and you look at the United States of America, which, you know, is you know, it's got the Constitution and the democracy and everything, but the criminal justice system, not too many people know about, because unless you're entwined and you get into the unlucky lottery of getting into that pool, you don't know, because everything is told to you about how it works. I mean, we're both political science majors, and you know, constitutional law and all that. But when you get into it, man, and there's nothing like seeing.
I was that guy. I was that guy. Just didn't think about it. Hey, they're doing a good job. They're trying to be. They're seeking truth and justice.
Yeah.
And did I learn something? And to me, and it's coming out. If you read some of the books out with some of the people who have been wrongly convicted for judicial misconduct.
Yeah.
I pursued that and was, you know, I thought there was some misconduct by some of the agents involved.
Sure.
And it was shut down by the system.
Did you, in your 5 or 6 years of leading up to this, did you get an opportunity to talk to FBI agents, to U.S. attorneys?
I did. I had nothing to hide. They said, hey, you might have some information to help us. I said, you can look at everything I've done, seen. I have nothing to hide. This is it. I did. And they used those against me.
Yeah. Well, Rod, tell me about, it comes down to sentencing day, and you think you've done all the hard work to show that you could be a help to society, and they come down and the judge tells you he's going to throw you 7 years. What are you thinking? What are you feeling at that point?
Well, I was not expecting it. My attorneys, early on, you know, they weigh, you know, you ask them, hey, if we go to trial, what do you think is going to happen? You know, well, you're the low man on the totem pole, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you're looking at 36 months, 40 months, something like that, at the high end if you're found guilty. You're not really who they're after. You just happen to be a peripheral. So I weigh that in my whole decision making too. Now, if they'd have told me originally, well, if you go to trial, you're going to do 100 years. Would I have pled? I don't know. I still don't know the answer to that. I'm still thinking I would still not plead, because I believe that truth and fairness happens. So I'm sitting there thinking, you know, something between 24 and 36 months is coming my way, which is something, you know, you can plan for it. Don't have to lose. I mean, another thing about the judicial system is you got to be very poor or very rich. Mm-hmm. You're right there in the middle. It takes everything from you. It took everything. It drained our accounts. I lost business. Not only in the 5 years that it took, you try to keep a business going, you lose business. So I'm thinking it's going to be 24, 36 months, you know, something like that. So we can weather it. We can financially plan for that. And when she hit 84 months, it
had to take your breath away.
All I could see was, you know, my children and how they're going to change, and I'm not going to be there. And it was devastating.
I can't imagine. I mean, and at the ages your kids were at the time of that, and that's, of course, that floods your mind immediately, because, you know, 7 years is in that time period when your kids were those ages. So when you were sentenced, how long did you have? Well, first of all, you didn't go to a place close to home. That
No,
had to
and
have been a surprise.
That's a whole nother story. So, you know, when I had about, I think, 2 or 3 months from sentencing to report date. The first report date, I asked to get extended because I needed to have knee surgery.
Okay.
I had damage to my knee, and I needed opportunity. If I was going to be gone, I needed this repaired before I went in. So I did, and she granted that. So if you ask me the date I reported, I can't tell you. There are some dates in my head I just kind of block out. But I had that much time. I had some time to kind of get affairs in order. But you never have enough time. I mean, you never have enough time. And I can remember in vivid detail what that day was like. I had some family members drive me when my attorneys told me I was going to Leavenworth, Kansas. I was like, what the? And I came to
How many
find out.
hours? How many hours drive is that from Dallas area? I mean, it's got to be like
10, 12, 13.
hours. Yeah.
It's 10 or 12 or 13. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's not a drive that you can make easily.
Right.
And it was another, even though the judge had ordered that I be, serve my sentence close to home.
Yeah.
The prosecutor's office, the prosecutor's office put in something, I can't remember the exact verbiage, but it said, remove him from his sphere of influence.
Wow.
And I fought that the entire 7 years I was gone to get moved closer, and they fought it every time. There's a whole other story why, and that's, anyway.
Well, I got to tell you, Ron, that is another thing that I think, again, we're talking about the justice system. They knew you had a wife. They knew you had kids. They knew it would be better. I mean, you had a long sentence. It would obviously be better for these people to be able to visit you closer to home. And the only thing that could do was, pull the rubber band of the family unit. And to me, that it's just as crazy as the whole visiting system in prison, where they've got the crazy point system and they don't really want you to visit that long, and people will double count your points, and people will show up and they say you don't have enough points. All those things are really set up to move you away from your family for the ultimate punishment that you don't have anything. Because if you have family, they would really kind of like you not to have that either. And for you to go from Dallas to be put in Leavenworth, knowing that you have a family that's supporting you and all these people that want to be and see you and visit you and send you that far away, that's punishment on top of the 7 years. There's no other way to look at that.
No, there's no other way. I'll tell you what, there was a prison camp that was 20 minutes away from most of my brothers and sisters where they live.
Yeah.
30 minutes away from where my mother lived. 45 minutes away from where my ex-wife and my children lived. Yeah. I could have been there and at least maintain those ties. It might have even saved my marriage. I mean, prison cost me. It cost me a family, not just the time, but it cost me my wife, who I'd been married to for 25 years. Yeah. And it was more punishment on her and on them than it was on me.
Sure. It's devastating.
And I think that's, I don't know. I don't know why, but it seems like maybe there's some, policymakers, people who create these policies really don't understand reform or what it takes to, if you're trying to create a citizen that's going to come back out there and respect society and respect people, they're definitely not doing it that way. I didn't have to go to prison to learn how to be a good citizen. I was one well before I went in, you know. Right.
So fast forward to me, Ron, you get the Leavenworth letter. It's way away from home. You pull up to Leavenworth. You stand at that gate. You stand at that gate. Walk me through your thoughts.
You know, and you did it. I mean, did you when you got there, did you have to stand out that gate and wait right outside the big place?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there, standing, and my siblings, I had some of my brothers and sisters drove me up there. I didn't want to put my my wife at the time through that. That was too much for her. So they drove me up there, dropped me off, and exiting that car and walking up to that tower, it was kind of surreal. I knew I was experiencing it, but it was almost out of body. I can almost see it better looking at myself above than through my eyes, and just walking up to that gate and letting them know, hey, I'm turning yourself in, like you're waiting for an order at Jack in the Box or something. It's
Right.
kind of how they looked at it. And then from that point, just a demoralizing experience. I mean, just and I don't know that it really hit me at that point what 7 years was going to be like, because I honestly, in my head, was thinking they've made a mistake. I've got good attorneys, the justice system. Somebody's going to come up and say, "Nah, you're right. You made a mistake." You know, because I play back in my head the arguments the prosecutors were making about things that were said or not said. I'm like, that's crazy. That's not it at all. But when they compared me to the leader of a drug cartel.
Right.
Anyway, so it was kind of surreal. So that first experience is almost like a part of me, but
yeah.
not
Well,
a
I
part
mean,
of
when
me.
and you know, there is no more humbling experience than walking through that gate, and then the other gate slams, and then you go into the bowels of that very ugly bottom basement prison, and you realize at that time, and it's almost like the freedom was shedding off of you as you were walking through that sidewalk, and you feel it off, you feel it falling away from you.
Just like they take your clothes, you feel that falling away.
Exactly. And they kind of it's prisonizing. They take your clothes and they give you the ugly clothes, and you know you everything's then, you know, what do I do next? I'm not going to tell you what happens next. You're gonna find out when I tell you. And those are the things that your mind is like a computer. It's taking all this in. So as you go down to the camp, what's it like when you know, Ron's entered prison?
You know, I was one of the lucky ones. I guess I got there early enough that I didn't have to stay in the shoe there.
Okay.
Swanson.
Wonderful man.
Yeah.
And I mean that sarcastically. He was like the devil.
He was like the devil. He was. I only spent about maybe 2 or 3 hours there. He picked me up. He had a town driver. I could probably think of the name of the town driver that was driving the van with him in it, that picked me up and brought me back. And then when I finally went,
hey Ron, did it kind of freak you out that the people that were driving were the prisoners? I mean, that's like an eye-opening experience. Everything that's happening, the prisoners are doing.
And you know what? What's funny is 2 years later, I'm driving my own vehicle outside the prison.
Right.
In prison. It was crazy. Yeah, but it was, I'll tell you what, but when they drove me up to the camp, I really had no idea what to expect. And, you know, walk in, and the first thing I'm thinking is, I got to get me a shank. I can't trust anybody. Everybody's out to get me. I'm just thinking about all these prison movies I've seen, and don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, there is only a fraction of truth to that.
Right.
Most of the people you came across would do anything to help you out.
Yep.
You know, is that kind of how you kind of?
It really was. I think I always tell people that your mind always makes things out much worse than they really are, even prison. And I was shocked within the first hour of how many people were helping me. Roma was my first bunkie, and
Really, yeah.
And he immediately was showing me what to do. He was cleaning my locker so we could put my stuff in. And he leads me over to Clark and he says, "Hey, he's one of you." And
he's one of you.
Yeah, but it was one of those things, Ron, where within an hour, I was like, "Oh, okay, these people, they're all getting by and helping and doing," and I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to be," and I remember making the phone call to my wife and kids shortly after that. And I said, "I'm going to be okay. Don't worry about me. I got this." But Ron, I want to know, because in your mind, I think you were probably forked in how you were thinking, because one part of you knew you had a 7-year sentence. The other part of you was thinking, "I'm going to get out of this because I'm appealing." What were your strategies of how you were tackling in that environment?
I focused. One, I did the best I could to keep communications with my wife at the time, and my kids, and my family. And I tell you what, I had my siblings, my mother, and my kids. They all, and my wife at that time. I mean, they're very supportive. You're going to get through this. We're going to continue to fight. They had all of my funds had been drained and just really dwindled down, and I had people coming forward to help me with my legal expenses, all these things. So my focus, really, that first few months and years, was try to maintain ties, keep the communication up with my kids, try to manage, if I could, what's happening on the outside. I soon learned there was nothing you could do to help on the outside.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing. And so I focused on my appeals and on the issues I saw with the trial and the evidence and all these things. And then I also tried to find something useful, something that I could give back even inside prison, which is why my first job there was in the education department.
Yeah.
I helped inmates get their GEDs. I taught them parenting classes. I taught them economics classes. I taught them, I was trying to, I guess, still feed that need I had to give back to my community.
Don't you think, Ron, that, and I believe in that, I think one of those strategies in prison, I know it's one that I lived by, is don't quit being you, because if you quit being you, you slip down a slippery slope. And I think one of the things I really admired about how you did your time, you did work in education. I remember you working the garden, which was the hardest job on the campus. I remember how you stayed in your lane but stayed focused. And whether you're in prison or out of prison, keeping your mind active so it doesn't get stale, I think, is a big thing.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I like what you said. Don't lose yourself. And I thank God that He had, I don't know if He prepared me or what He did, but He kind of, whether I really directly thought about it, I knew that I was going to continue just to try to be who I was. And that they didn't take that part of me away from me.
They didn't take that. They didn't take your brain. How often did you see your family because you were so far away?
You know what? Early on.
Because I remember seeing you in the visiting room from time to time, because Julie would drive her from St. Louis.
Well, my marriage kind of fell apart in the first year. My wife, my ex-wife now, she tried hard to
make it work.
To make it work. But I tell you what, I mean, being that far away, limited telephone, limited all these things.
Yeah.
And it was a struggle. She came several times that first year, and then again, I don't blame her. She saw 7 years of trying to raise kids and do it on her own, and it was just it was bad. It was bad for her. But I had brothers and sisters and my mother. I would, a month wouldn't go by that I would not have visitors. Now, if I'd have been in Dallas, it'd have been every weekend, somebody there. I had friends come to see me, but it was a struggle. And I think being that far away from when it was costly, it took time. It was, and you never knew what you're going to get with the visiting center,
Yeah, it was always a mess at the visiting center. And speaking of that, Ron, prison's a tough place to live. How did you handle a hard day in prison? How did you cope? What did you do?
I looked for someone else I could talk to and help them.
Okay.
There was always someone there in need of a shoulder or an ear or something. And I was very involved in music.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah, we put together some great programs.
Oh, you guys are good.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I wish I had some recordings of what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did that. I just stay involved in the chapel, and I think that linked me. If I was having a bad day, I know there was somebody having a worse day, and I think that's what helps when you're feeling bad. Help somebody.
I like that. So when you went through all that time, and you figured out all these strategies of getting through your time, and you had a lot of different type of jobs and helping people along the way. In fact, you and I worked for a little while on the roads and grounds before I went to the Leavenworth golf course, Fort Leavenworth golf course. That was a good job you had, by the way. That guy really liked you. He was letting you just basically run the roads and grounds world.
Dude, I was doing a 6-figure job for that guy for 22 cents an hour.
Exactly. I love it.
I mean, you know what's funny? And I was telling somebody about this the other day. I had a key to an office that even the civilian employees couldn't come into.
I love it.
And my boss trusted me more than he trusted them.
Exactly. That's what's so ironic. Yeah. So as you got close, because 7 years is a long time, as you got closer, realizing that, because I had 5 years, served 3, and I know that there were things I started thinking about as I was getting close to the door. Ron, what was your time like when you started realizing I'm getting back into society? Freedom's going to be something I can see. At the end of the tunnel, there's a light coming out.
Well, I mean, probably, if I was being honest, the number one thing that was on my mind was try to save my family.
Yeah.
Try to, my wife had filed for divorce within a year, maybe a little after a year I'd gotten it. But it had just taken 3, 4, 5 years. And the entire time, I really was trying to not push her into position, but just say, hey, this is going to end. So I think what I was thinking about is I'm a very family oriented person. I mean, it's just kind of how I was raised, was what can I do to salvage
put it back together. Yeah.
I wasn't worried about earning a living. Yeah. I really wasn't. Because I can always do things with my hands. At least I could, easily make a manual labor living, easily, because I had a really good basic knowledge. Now, it wouldn't have been the living that we had before I went to prison,
right.
But I wasn't worried about that. So I was really just worried about my children, how they were. They've been, I mean, my youngest daughter was 7. And I got out luckily in time to see her graduate high school.
Wow.
I missed my oldest son's college graduation. I missed my middle son's high school graduation.
Right. And you don't get that back.
No, you don't get
Those
it
are
back.
once in a lifetime moments.
They're once in a lifetime. So really what I was thinking about is creating an environment, creating an opportunity to salvage the family. When I say salvage the family, my ex-wife and my kids.
Yeah. Put it all back together.
And that was my focus. And, you know, I tried and it didn't work. And that's okay. Life's good. My kids are good. I focused on trying to get the best time back with them, you know. That really was it. I wasn't worried about jobs and money. God gave me a lot of gifts, and those kind of things didn't work.
Tell me the day you walked out.
Oh my God. So, you know,
7 years.
I don't know if anybody else, maybe you experienced the same, but when I went into prison, all I kept thinking was, they've made a mistake. They've made a mistake. That I'm not supposed to be here. It's kind of like that guy in Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, exactly. The first night.
Yeah. And of course I wasn't walling around and crying, but
no, of course not.
I really thought that. And when I left, I kept looking over my shoulder, thinking they made a mistake. They made a mistake. I'm not supposed to be leaving.
Exactly.
Take me back.
Yeah.
Isn't
that crazy? Isn't that crazy though that your mind thinks that? Why are they like? Something's going to happen.
Did you experience
Absolutely. That? I knew my family was out in the parking lot, and I was scared to death somebody's going to grab me and said they made a mistake. There was some kind of, they're pulling me back in.
Brett, that makes
I've been sucked back in.
No, that makes me feel better about it because I'm telling you, the entire trip back, my family, I was like shaking. Mm-hmm. They had to console me and hold me. I was just like, they're gonna take me back, and I still have nightmares about that.
Yeah,
you know, I do.
It is something, Ron, on how your mind, you know, adjusts to things, and then you've got a little bit of PTSD on those type of things. But I mean, you and I had the exact same feeling. And when they call you up there, and you've been there, you were there for 7 years, I was there for 3, and then one day they just say you can walk out that door, bye, and you're like, whoa, what?
I know, it's crazy. It really is crazy.
It's crazy.
You know.
Well, Rod, tell me. So you get back into life, and you and I share a little bit before we got on. Give everybody a little bit of taste of what life's like with Ron in Dallas or Denton now, and how you feel about things.
Man, I tell you what, it really is good. I wake up, I'm telling you, every morning. I don't care what the weather's like. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
For some reason, I got some kind of.
I've got you.
Something happened with my Zoom thing here.
I can hear you. I can hear you and see you.
Oh, really? I can't see you for some reason. Man.
Okay. Am I gone?
You're gone.
Or you can keep talking because I can see and hear you.
Okay. Well, I'll keep talking. I just can't see.
All right.
But I tell you, I just wake up every morning. It doesn't matter what the weather's like, and I really just enjoy waking up. And I've got just a real appreciation for life and for people. And, you know, I tell you what, God gave me a lot of blessings in my life, and he kept my children safe and healthy. And I'm so thankful for that. He blessed me with just a lot of gifts, you know, just the ability to be creative, to be a communicator, and to be able to have a vision on property and construction and housing. And he's put just a lot of opportunity in front of me. And I think that it really is just a joy to have had that experience, because I think it makes living now after that just tastes so much better. It's kind of like if you've been drinking unsweetened tea all your life and get some sweet tea, it's just
what a great analogy. Yeah. And you got back into the world you were in with building, developing your son. I think you told me you're working with him.
Yep.
What a great thing to be able to share your knowledge with your son and keep that as a legacy. I love that.
Yeah. You know, when I got out, I wasn't too concerned about again finding a job or even being able to earn an income. I had lots of contacts in the industry, lots of friends, a lot of people that knew me, and they knew that they would help me any way they could as soon as they had the opportunity. So I just got right back into where I started, construction, and I love it. Love building things with my hands. Just kind of kept working my way up. Now, when you get labeled a felon, it makes it difficult to talk to investors, to talk to banks, talk to suppliers. So you got to lean back on the people that you had contacted before, people that really knew you, and then you just got to start new relationships sometimes, and that has been a challenge. But it's I've reestablished banking relationships, reestablished investor relationships. So.
And Ron, I think that's a good point too, because you are labeled as an ex-felon. That's a life sentence that you'll carry with you, and you just have to be super tenacious to really step through that, and knowing when you walk into a room that's they can Google you, somebody's got a story or whatever. You've got to face that head on and just say, yeah, that's me, but here's what I can do for you. Here's what I can do as a guy. And I think that's the difference, because it's really hard. We've talked about this several times on the podcast. When you go to interview for a job, you got to check a box that you're an ex-felon, or if you want to live somewhere, you're an ex-felon. If you want to get credit, you're an ex-felon. Knowing that, then you've got to come up with a new strategy, and either you've got people that are going to help you, that understand you, that have relationships with you, or like you said, you create new relationships and they believe in you. But it's you need an opportunity, and us guys out here that have been through this, we're looking for real opportunities so we can be good people to work with, for sure.
I think you hit it. I mean, if you having that label, for some people, it shuts the door.
Yeah.
I would say for most people, it shuts the door.
Yeah.
But I have learned, and this is I've learned in just in personal relationships. I've got a wonderful woman that's in my life now. Within the first.
What's that woman's name, Ron?
Her name is Lisa.
Yeah, I met Lisa.
Yeah, you met Lisa.
Right before we started. Nice lady.
So, our second date, I told her right off the bat, look, this is what happened. Google my name, you'll see this. I said, I just want you to know that. You make a decision, make your judgment about me.
Yeah.
But the point I'm making is you just got to come out to people and talk about it.
Exactly.
Own it.
Isn't it? Don't you feel better leading with it than wondering if?
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think in some company, people say, really?
Yeah.
And then when you start telling them the story, when
Yeah.
you start telling them about how, well, you thought it was this, but it's really this, they start kind of questioning too.
Right.
And because what I have learned is if being a felon or having that in your background is going to be something that someone's going to make a decision upon, it's better to know right up front.
Right.
For both parties, no hard feelings, just move on.
Exactly.
And I think that's in business relationships and for sure in personal relationships, because we all desire just to be understood for who we are, authentically.
Yeah.
And that means our experiences, good, bad, or indifferent. And so it's been a challenge, and I think that's one reason why I've kind of taken a course of action that I have in my life with my business is I lean back on people that knew me. I've got a banker that I work with that has known me for 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
who is back with me doing business with me.
Mm-hmm.
Trade.
He knows you.
Because
He knows who
me.
you are. Right.
Oh, he knows me. He knows me. He knows me. He knows the things that the government says on a stand.
Right.
That's not you.
Right.
So, but
well,
anyway.
Ron, I think, I mean, you've shared so much, and I appreciate you just being so open about all this, because I think, you know, everybody has things that they deal with. They don't have to go to prison. They just have things they deal with. I think you've shared a lot of different things of how you can cope and get through, and you know, dealing with something that you didn't think was going to happen, and then you had to deal with what happened. But if you were going to impart anything to the listeners that I haven't asked you, would there be anything that you would want to share about how life is for you now and what you see?
You can't relive yesterday.
Love that.
You can plan for tomorrow, but tomorrow's not here. You have to appreciate where you are today. And what prison probably taught me more than anything, that the most important things in our life are not the things or what we do, but it's those people in our lives. And it's how we make those people feel. And it doesn't matter if you're successful, if you've got, you drive fancy cars or live in a big house or fly all over the world. If you don't have people in your life that love you, that you love authentically as your real self, then there's not real joy in your life. That's for me. And I think that.
I love that, Ron. In fact, I love that so much. I think we should end this on that. That was good stuff. Good stuff, my man. So everybody, Ron, thank you so much for doing this podcast. It means a lot to me because I've always respected you and admired how you handled yourself. For those listening, I still have my book out there. If you want to buy it, Nightmare Success, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Hopefully you can, it's easy. Just check it out. You can go to my website, BrentCassidy.com, and you can order it from there. Ron, thank you so much, man.
Brent, thank you. Hey, thank you for what you're doing. I love what you're doing. You're getting the word out. God bless you, and all the best.
I appreciate it. Everybody, Nightmare Success, in and out. Thank you for being here.